Hi, and welcome to this live reading from In His Kiss by Ava Alise, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Zaya. I am officially pathetic. It's sad, really. I've only known the guy for my entire life, yet every time he touches me, a thrill of something new and undiscovered races down my spine. Do you think it will be okay? It won't look like I'm trying too hard, will it? Jordan leans back against his spot in our booth, removing the arm he had casually draped around my shoulder. I'm trying to seem unaffected, but I can't ignore the sense of emptiness that grows in my chest when he slips away. See? Told you I was pathetic. We aren't in a romantic setting. We are at a bustling coffee shop at 9 a.m. I'm not on a date. I'm having coffee with my best friend. Jordan and I are 10 miles outside of town. We stumbled on this little gem of a cafe on the way back home this morning. He and his dad are rehabbing an old lake house that Lisa, his mother, bought before she died. They've been looking for good deals to keep the costs low and lucked out with a seller a town over who had a large selection of granite floor tiles they planned to use in the master bathroom. Jordan's dad had to work, so when he asked me if I wanted to ride with him, I said yes. Because, of course I did. It's not often I pass up on alone time with him. God, it shouldn't be this hard. We've been best friends since we were old enough to walk. I can't recall one big event in my life that Jordan wasn't there for, and I don't know when my feelings changed for him. Well, I take that back. There was never anything to change. I've always adored him. If anything, my adoration has just intensified the older we've gotten. No, I clear my throat, then take a sip from my cup. Anything to cure the dryness. I think the more letters of recommendation you have, the better. His big interview with Professor Sachi is Friday morning, and I'm really happy for him. His whole reason for enrolling at Chrome Hills University was to obtain a degree in engineering and get closer to this profession. Sachi is the mastermind behind Krill Enterprises. The company is pretty innovative. Most of their products revolve around using various types of robotics to solve everyday problems for office workers. And interestingly enough, their stuff makes a ton of money. But Jordan geeks out over it. Jordan Black, star football player, total heartthrob, and complete robotics nerd. Not many people understand his love of robotics, but I've always found it adorable. When we were kids, he'd run around most days with the guys, talking to girls, playing flag football in the yard, just typical boy stuff. But at night, he was almost always in his parents' garage fiddling away at something he was either taking apart or putting back together. I'll never forget the year he destroyed my Easy Bake Oven. I loved the darn thing, but he convinced me he could make it work faster, and at 9 years old, the 15-minute wait on my quarter-sized cookies felt like an eternity. I happily agreed and lugged it across the street. By the time he was done with it, my cookie sheets were shooting out of the thing like missiles. I was so pissed. But yup, he's a total closet nerd. He's followed Sachi's company since its inception back when he was a high school freshman and vowed to land a job there once he graduated college. The second he learned about the opening for a teacher's assistant, he jumped on it, and I really hope he gets it. But I'd be lying if I said it won't feel odd for Jordan to be a TA for my new professor. I'll have Sachi's class, Engineering 251, next fall. I just declared my major as fine arts, but I was short a science credit, and his class was the only one left. So I guess I'll be a robotics nerd for a semester. I want to be a graphic designer. I find my peace in taking already beautiful photography and manipulating it to its fullest potential, and I plan to make a career out of it. Fingers crossed. Okay, well, I'm ready then. I'll give this shit all I've got and hope for the best, Jordan says as he pinches a bite-sized piece of the blueberry muffin he's been eating between his fingers before popping it in his mouth. This job is yours. Professor Sachi loves you. He'd be lucky to have you as his assistant. His eyes go soft around the edges and he smiles. We linger there for a bit, and a warmth fills his gaze that causes my heart to swell. The longer he stares at me, the more intensely the butterflies flop around in my stomach. This is stupid, and it's only getting worse. I started recognizing my feelings for him back when we were still in high school. At first, I wrote off my jealousy toward his girlfriends as me just feeling territorial over my best friend. It wasn't until senior prom when he showed up at my door dressed to the nines and whisked Renee Santeria away in a stretch limo that I realized what was really happening. They'd been dating a few months, so I'd seen them together many times. But there was just something about that night. That was 4 years ago. I haven't said anything because, well, I really don't think he feels the same way. He treats me like one of the guys, and it's a friendship I truly cherish. And I think I'd prefer not embarrassing myself by putting that at risk. Having him in this way is better than not at all. I've spent the last 4 years trying to turn these feelings off, telling myself that it will never work. We are too ingrained in each other's lives. Our fathers are best friends. Our friendship is closer than most siblings. There's a comfort there that I wouldn't trade for anything. Just like today. We have always been there for each other, no matter what life threw at us or how pissed we might get. Our friendship has been indestructible. I won't ruin it, no matter how desperately I crave more of him. Seriously, it's going to go great. Stop worrying, I add, attempting to lighten up the moment. Everything about his posture is relaxed. Well, you'd think that if you didn't know Jordan. He's sitting with his elbow on the table, picking at a pastry that he normally would have decimated seconds after he got it. Plus, he keeps tapping his fingers on the table. He only fidgets when he's nervous. Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Aya. We go back to quietly sipping our coffee as I look over at a small group of people entering the cafe. A young woman carrying a baby comes in first, followed by a man pushing an empty stroller. The barista greets them cheerfully and makes googly eyes at the infant. The door hangs open as if someone was holding it for them, and just as I'm about to look away, the man who walks in next catches my eye. It's my father. Immediately, I smile, and I'm about to jump up from my seat and run over to hug my dad when the door closes behind him and I stop. I remember our last conversation. We were at dinner, and my mother was annoyed to find out about Dad's sudden work trip after she had spent the month planning a getaway for the three of us. It was a beach trip for the weekend. My father is head of the science department at Chrome Hills University, where Jordan and I go to school. With eyes downcast, he apologized to us over his plate of spaghetti, pushing it around with his fork as he insisted there was nothing he could do to get out of the conference. I thought he was still in Tulsa, I mutter, calculating how long it's been since he left. It's only been 2 days, and he isn't supposed to be back until Sunday. What? Jordan asks. I didn't even realize I'd said it out loud. He looks toward the spot, raising his eyebrows when he spots my dad. Our booth is tucked away in the corner of the room, so it isn't as easy for my father to see us as it is for us to see him. Right. Maybe his thing was canceled? Maybe, but why would he come all the way out here? It's a pretty big detour between the airport and home. True. Well, I'm going to go over to say hi, then forbid him from moving in on our new secret spot, I say with a chuckle as I slide toward Jordan, who has to stand to let me out of the booth. Okay, he laughs. I'll go with you. I reach for my phone, only to spot it wedged between the seat and the wall, and have to climb back across the booth to get it. By the time I'm on my feet again, I notice Jordan isn't moving, his eyes fixed on the front of the store. My father is still in the same place I last saw him, only now he isn't alone. A woman who doesn't look much older than I am is standing next to him with a glimmering smile. Her black hair falls in ringlets, framing her fully made-up face. She's wearing a pair of painted-on leggings and a crop top that shows off her flat stomach, and more cleavage than necessary. I can't tell if she's about to go to work out or if she thinks this is a fashionable look, but she sticks out like a rusty nail. He stands in front of her, and my heart drops as I watch him gently push her hair behind her ear before clasping her hand and walking with her toward the counter. What the hell? Slowly, I sink back to my seat. Jordan follows and immediately begins talking before he turns to look at me. Do you know her? He's trying to play it cool, but I can hear the concern in his voice. No, I say as I watch my father and the woman place their orders before walking toward a table tucked away on the other side of the small cafe. My head is racing to come up with a logical explanation. My palms feel sticky. His conference was canceled. The lady is his long-lost sister or a niece. One he just connected with who he's bringing home for us to meet. That's the answer. The only fucking answer, because the logical one can't be true. It would mean he lied to us. Has been lying to us, that he's a lying sack of shit who drove outside the city to meet some coffee shop whore and cheat on my mother. I can't take my eyes off of them. They're sitting across from each other, talking like no one else is in the room, like no one else can see this. Jordan must sense my blood boiling, because before I can speak, I feel his hand wrap around mine. He speaks in an even tone. It doesn't mean anything until it does. I stop staring at them long enough to look at Jordan. He sits down, reclaiming his spot next to me. Small creases appear between his brows as he holds me in a warm gaze. Don't jump to conclusions. My body is still rigid with tension, but Jordan's words, or his voice really, starts to penetrate a little. Still, everything in me wants to walk over to the table and grill my father, find out who she is and why they are here. But fear paralyzes me, because I know that if I find out that this is the worst case scenario, my world will explode. The world where my father is my hero, my Superman. The man who fell asleep on the back porch holding a tennis racket because my mom was terrified of raccoons getting inside when their kitchen was being redone last year. The man who'd wake me up to eat cupcakes under the stars when his job had him traveling on my birthday. The man who never missed a night to tuck me in when I was little. That man, he'd be gone. I'm a grown woman, 20 years old now, but the idea of my parents splitting up makes me feel like a child. Maybe it's because all of these memories would be tarnished with the undercut of how it ended. Zaya, Jordan's smooth voice rings in my ears, breaking through my racing thoughts as he squeezes my hand again. Look at me, he says, placing 2 fingers on my chin and tilting my face toward his. It takes me a minute to tear my eyes from my father in this rusty horror, but when I do, I've met with Jordan's calming gaze. I don't know what to think about what I'm seeing. I don't know what to do about it either. Then there's Jordan, sitting so close, holding my face. My skin is crawling and warming at the same time, and it's just too much. I slide back in the booth a few inches, just enough to break the connection. It doesn't mean anything until it does, he repeats. My lips move slightly as I try to find words to respond, but instead of my mouth opening, my eyes widen and I stare at Jordan as panic floods my chest. Come on, Z. He leans forward, placing a hand on both of my shoulders. Your parents are the happiest couple I've ever seen, maybe even happier than my parents were before my mother died. My pops credits your dad for being the reason he didn't fuck things up with my mom early on. He said watching your dad show him what having a good thing really looked like was key. He's the most stand-up guy I know. There must be an explanation for this. My eyes scroll Jordan's face. I know he's hoping that this isn't real just as much as I am. Jordan and my dad are hella close. Our fathers have been best friends since college, which is the reason Jordan and I were pretty much raised together. My father suddenly turning into a lying asshole would put a strain on our little family, and with us all just getting over the shock of his mother Lisa passing away, it's just too much. I can't believe she will have been gone for 2 years. The pain still lingers like a fresh wound. It takes everything I have not to look back at my father's table. I want to know if they are sitting close, if he's touching her, if she's staring into his eyes, or if they seem more casual. To make all this worse, the girl looks young enough to be a college student. Maybe a senior. Why would he cheat on my mother with a student? He's had a long career in education, and beside our family, his career is his only other passion. It doesn't make sense that he would jeopardize that. Jordan is still touching me, although he's adjusted a bit. He's no longer gripping my shoulders. One of his hands has fallen to his lap, and the other one is placed gently on my arm. You're right, I say, taking a deep breath. This is my father. I know him. We know him. My parents are still in love. I came home to do laundry just the other day and walked in on them making out on the couch like teenagers. It was gross, of course, but still, they are in love. He wouldn't do this to my mother. This can't be what it seems. I nod resolutely, and Jordan mirrors my motion, but I can still see a small line of worry in the crease of his eyes. Exactly. Why don't you just text him and see what he says? I'll do one better. I'll call him. With shaking hands, I grip my phone and press my pointer on the fingerprint scanner to unlock it. Dad always answers my calls, always, even if it's just to tell me he has to call me back. No matter how often I tell him to just ignore the call and text me instead, he picks up, arguing that texts are too impersonal and we kids will wake up one day and forget how to hold a proper conversation. Jordan leans back, folding his arms across his chest as he watches me. I clear my throat and scroll through my contacts until I see my dad, then I look back over to his table. Dad smiles at the woman adoringly, then reaches over and places his hand in hers. My eyes find Jordan's again and I hit send. It rings once, then twice, then a third time. My heart begins to pound. Jordan breaks our stare and looks over to my father, and I do the same. Dad's looking down at the table, but I can't tell if he's looking at his phone or not. By the time the fifth ring happens and his voicemail picks up, my eyes are welling with tears. I pull the phone from my ear and look at Jordan. There's a change in his eyes, and I can't tell if it's anger or hurt. He looks back over to my father, but I keep looking at him. His eyes narrow, his jaw ticks. I can now see that anger and disbelief growing in his face just as it's growing in my chest. I feel like I'm choking. "Let's go before I do something stupid," he says. I feel like I'm on autopilot as we walk out of the cafe into his car. The entire time I stare in my father's direction, hoping he'll look up, that the confrontation will happen naturally, that he'll be forced to give us an explanation. But he never looks up. I slide into Jordan's car and let the tears roll down my cheeks. Jordan is a lot tenser than he was when we were in the cafe, yet when he slides into the driver's seat next to me and shuts the door, he repeats his earlier statement. It doesn't mean anything until it does. I shake my head, because for some reason this time those words piss me off. I'm about to tell him just that when my phone buzzes in my lap. I look down and read the new message and I chuckle, but it's not a joyous laugh. It's the inappropriate type that bubbles up when your emotions are teetering between a full explosion and a full meltdown. I grip my phone tightly in my fist and hold the screen out to him. "Now, does it mean anything?" Jordan looks at my phone and reads the message from my father. "Dad. Sorry I missed your call, sweetheart. I'm at the airport now, about to board. I'll call you when I land." Jordan's eyes widen as they move to mine, and it's as if his body deflates. His sturdy frame, sculpted thanks to college football, seems more round. His honey brown eyes seem more pale, and his complexion goes ashen. He looks like he may be sick. I know I feel like I'm going to throw up. My skin goes prickly all over, and I don't know if I'm about to cry or scream, but I'm at a total loss for words as I look at him. Without another word, he starts the car and heads back to town.